Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership. Leave us a review on iTunes. On this Thoughtful Thursday, I want to talk about something that I saw on LinkedIn from Gary Vaynerchuk, who, obviously we're huge fans of Gary Vaynerchuk on the show. The bigger he gets, the more I just wish I knew him years ago before he was big, because now it just looks like I'm a fanboy if I, try to, get to know him. But something he posted on LinkedIn talks about automation. It talks about, I'll read his post and I'll tell you what I think about it from a leadership standpoint. He says, a stunning amount of people are not going to be successful in sales because they're not willing to work hard enough. They love automation. They love all these tools, bots, auto replies, and apps and services and startups and CRMs that think are going to solve the problem. Automation is not the answer. Sales is about people. You have to build relationships first. You have to put yourself in your customer's shoes and empathize with their position. No app is going to teach you that. Lorenzo, do you see leaders trying to automate things as well?
I don't know if I see leaders trying to do it, but I see leaders falling into the trap of others trying to do it.
Companies trying to automate things, yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, there's always an element around efficiency and how do you make things easier, and how do you, I think in the time of technology, we want to validate something with a dashboard. What's a dashboard that we can look at to say, did we do this? Did we do that? And I think from a business standpoint, we're very used to a dashboard of metrics and numbers and things that you can look at to just say like what happened, But I think when it comes to people, the completion of different tools, the ability to look at something from a, from a conversation, from a development standpoint, and then make an assessment just simply based on data and automation, and then if and then algorithms and things of how things should go. For me, I see that as a potential trap for leaders, where they truly start to think that by completing something that has the impact that you need to have in regards to changing behavior.
Yeah. A mentor of mine once said that a good performance review could be done on the back of a napkin at a bar. And what he means by that is that if you have the kind of relationship with a person where you could sit at a bar with them for a couple hours and have a chat, then the performance review or whatever it is that you're doing doesn't need to follow the 5-page prescriptive box checking, comment writing, things that your company expects. Now, you may have to still do that because the expectation is that things are documented and on paper, and that's fine. But a lot of companies, I think where this is coming from is a lot of companies are creating these tools because they see a leadership deficit. They see a leadership deficit in a lot of leaders who they're not engaging with their people the right way. They're not creating relationships with their people the right way. And they say, all right, well, if they're not going to be a good leader, at least we can control the dialogue by saying you must do this and this and this and this and this and this in this order so that we have the right things on paper. And I don't know if they're hoping that takes the place of a relationship, or if they don't have the tools themselves as organizations to hold leaders accountable to being good leaders. And so because they don't have the ability to have good succession planning and the ability to move out leaders who should be leaders to begin with, they instead try to mitigate the damage with tools. They say, follow these tools and hopefully we can lessen the negative impact you have on your people in the meantime while we try to figure out some way of getting rid of you. And so what I want to ask you, Lorenzo, is have you ever been asked by an organization to do something that you rolled your eyes at because you're thinking, if I actually do this in the way you want, the person who I'm talking to is going to look at me like I'm an idiot because of the relationship that I already have with that person. So I want to ask you that question, but first I want to give it up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, have you ever had to go through the motions with a person and you almost had to caveat it at the beginning with, hey, I don't want to do this, but we have to. So let's just get through this together because we already have the relationship that says we don't need this.
Yes, probably 15 years or so ago. There were like kind of these assessments that had to be completed, and the assessments were extremely like prescriptive, and like you say this, then you listen for that, then you say this and you listen for that. And it felt so like robotic and unauthentic and silly. Number one, because you could tell that the person or the people that were in charge of it had really never spent any time doing the actual job they were assessing, just simply by the questions they were asking and the not understanding how things work together. But then the other part of it was that the questions, like so much of leadership in my thought and my opinion was built upon like being authentic and being transparent with people, that when it was kind of asked to be done this very specific way, it was kind of like if you didn't have a strong relationship with people, it was really going to damage that, because it's kind of like, does anybody else in this room think this sounds crazy and silly because it's not real? And if you're not willing to say that it is up front and say like, look, I need to do this, something that we're being asked to do. I can tell you up front that that this can feel a little bit silly and robotic and not like how I would talk to you, what we would talk about, but out of the organization asking us to make sure that we get this done, this is how we're going to have to do it. But some of this may sound silly, but I need you to answer how you're going to answer so that I can send in what we need to send in. So like there's many times when I think that and over time now. The systems, the processes, the technologies, the softwares that we have can also come across very much that way and be silly and not understand that like if we want to have real authentic relationships with our people, then when we have to kind of regurgitate something or not have an element of authenticity in it that's about us, then it feels like we're hiding something, or that it's not or that it's being done for a reason that may not be, up and up on the front end.
Yeah, I think back to the episode that we did 3 days ago on Monday, talking about generational differences and how the type of work that we do as people is changing. There's less assembly line work and there's more kind of thought leadership and more problem solving. That type of work is virtually impossible to validate on an Excel spreadsheet, in real time. You might be able to say, did you meet your KPIs? Did you accomplish the goals for the year? But on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, it might be really difficult to say whether or not a person is accomplishing this and this and this. Like you could say if the person's job was on an assembly line and it's about pure productivity. The consequence of that is that it's really hard as a leader to validate whether or not your people are getting their work done like they should be if you are not with your people. If you're with your people every day and you're watching them, you can speak to it. But we are in a largely remote work environment for a lot of people now, and it's getting more so that way, combined with a work environment that says it's not necessarily about a deliverable on a week, but more about the deliverables of goals as a whole over the course of several months or quarters or project-based stuff. You combine all that together, and good luck being a leader and trying to validate whether or not where your talent is in Excel. You have to have the relationship with the people. And if you are naturally good at this already, then great, you're doing fine right now. But if you already struggled with this when you were in an office with people, you are really struggling with this now, and leaning heavily on the automation, leaning heavily on the prescriptive way that the organization, the tools that are given to you. Don't think that because the organization says here's this tool, that it is a substitute for actually having a relationship and the conversations with people. Because if you have those good conversations with your people and you have the relationship already, then you can figure out what tools work best for documenting that, and you'll know whether or not they're engaged in their work and they're being productive or not.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great call out. And again, it's not that we don't need the tools or the software or elements of automation or making things easier. Like these things can be extremely effective and very, very helpful when plugged in appropriately and when layered on top of the work that you're already doing or the conversations that you're already having. Like that's such like our 1 minute hacks. Like if you look back at all of the 500 plus episodes and years of doing this, if you listen to our 1 minute hacks, here's spoiler alert, right? Almost all of them are reflect on something, write it down, and talk to people.
Right.
Like that's literally it. Because at the end of the day, that relationship and the ability to spend time thinking about what you have done or what you would do or what you might do differently, and then writing it down to kind of lock it into memory and to have a place where you're documenting your own professional journey, and then talking to people is like such an element of leadership. Like, could you imagine if we'd said, hey, we're going to put out a digital version of the 1 Minute Hack and just like click these buttons and you're a better leader tomorrow? Like,
Right.
no,
Right.
you can't. So anyway, I just think that there's definitely space, and there's some elements of necessity to figure out ways to be more effective and more efficient with what we do. But at the end of the day, that element of connection and relationship is always going to be the biggest piece, no matter what.
Yeah, we could say for this episode of the 1 Minute Hack, get out your pen and paper, write something down that relates to the episode you just listened to, think about it, put some thought into it, and then have a conversation with your people about it. Those words right there could be said, virtually, I would say on 80% of them. But the reason we make it specific to each episode because there are some subtle nuances. But yeah, absolutely, this is about the relationship, and it's about your level of self-awareness and how you are being with people in an authentic way. You can't expect people to be their best selves and to bring their most productive selves if you are engaging with them in a way that says, this is how the company wants me to engage with you. The relationships don't work that way. You don't have a list of your friends on an Excel spreadsheet. You just know who your friends are, and this is the exact same way.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.